Well, what happens in nature is energy builds up around certain nodes, or certain points of intersection of ideas, and so the universe is possibilistic. So just like a weather system, the chance of lightning is 80%. Mm-hmm. You can say, okay, with the concentration of that weather system, just like a quantum system, the concentration of that weather system, we know there's an 80% probability there will be lightning in this area. Mm-hmm. So they can say what the probability is. They can't say where the lightning bolt is going to hit.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing with quantum events. When you have a concentration of the context, quantum systems are context dependent. So you have the kid in watch the Batman movie and go out and kill all these people.
Yeah.
Well, you know, with the way we worship violence in movies, the way we have a violent history with the blacks and Indians, and the way we treat our own people, the proliferation of guns, that the probability is that these things are going to literally pop out of the time-space framework in a non-linear fashion. So that people say, oh, the parents are to blame, the community's to blame. The thing is, it's the whole system.
Yeah.
In quantum physics, we look at the largest possible context, the largest possible system, and that's what created the event. The largest possible system. But of course, that means we have to look at ourselves, and we have to change national policy, and we have to, literally turn plowshares into... turn weapons into plowshares. I mean, But anyway, what we have now is we've created a culture of war and death that we're required. We need to stay at war in order to sustain this monster, this military-industrial banking oil monster.
Yeah.
And media is all part of it too.
So we're at the point now where pretty much the monster is taking control of the lab.
The monster is completely out of control. I mean, it's exactly what Eisenhower said. And the thing is, everything else is subservient to war and death. These generals are flying around on these jets like they're kings, like they're Caesar. They're flying around the world like they're Caesar, and the people who are paying for it are minimum wage lackeys.
Dunkin' Donut employees.
Well, the figure I use in 1850, a slave cost $1,500 to the plantation owner. A healthy slave in Mississippi, $1,500. In 2006 dollars, that meant the employer paying someone minimum wage, which is the bottom 10th percentile at that time. That person have to work. He'd get 17 2/3 years of that person's life, working life.
Interesting.
And that person would still have to buy everything. The employer wouldn't have to pay for food, wouldn't have to pay for education, wouldn't have to pay for housing, wouldn't have to pay for clothing. And I'm not arguing for bondage, but this gives an example of how, this was already happening with when slavery became...
With indentured servitude and slavery back in those days. When
slavery became politically incorrect, they were already figuring out how to control labor wages by making labor scarce.
Right, and then an hourly wage. Changing it from like a production based economy where your pay was based on what you did versus you being someplace for a certain amount of time. That's a huge, and from my perception, that was a significant shift in paradigm, because that made it more akin to slavery or imprisonment, where it didn't matter what you were doing in that time. You could be sitting at a desk doing nothing, playing with a yo-yo.
They own you,
but you had to be in your cubicle.
Right, they own you.
Yeah, they own your time.
But essentially, for people, it's you cannot live in America on minimum wage.
No.
And there's so many people now, college graduates I know, who are my age. I'm 61, and they're they've lost their careers, whatever they were, and they're working retail, less than 35 hours a week, about $10 an hour, no benefits. And that's what they're doing. And thank God they don't have the college loans kids do today for the jobs. They're paying $200,000 for education for jobs that don't exist.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is, when I see guys like Lloyd Blankfein, a swindler, invited to the White House for a state dinner, and he's CEO of the year.
At the same time, he's under investigation, being called up from congressional inquiries for the behavior of his company.
And
Goldman Sachs, right?
Who else is at that dinner? War criminal Henry Kissinger, responsible for millions of deaths in the world, right?
Yeah.
But Ted Koppel calls him Dr. Kissinger. Yeah. So these are all guys at the White House.
Cognitive dissonance.
It's like they're all criminals.
Yeah.
So we have a crime state. And this is a term Chomsky has used. It is a crime state. It's an organized crime operation.
Those who do the worst are rewarded the most.
It's in violation of the RICO statutes. All these bankers are in violation of the RICO statutes. And these little kids who are sent to prison for selling crack for 5 to 15 years is required by the state of Connecticut. Because they have no other means of making a decent living, and it's a bad choice to make. I'm not saying that that they're making the right choice, but my God, what are we doing? And the same systems that have always run drugs are still running drugs. The whole Eastern establishment was involved in the China trade, which was opium running, addicting millions of Chinese, cost millions of lives. They made enormous profits. They've all been involved in drug running, laundering, banking, the whole thing all along. The Bushes even today. The Bushes are involved in the cocaine thing, and they have been. That's why Noriega, you cannot speak to him.
Yeah.
They kidnapped a foreign head of state to make sure of that.
Yeah.
Because he started to talk.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And really, who knows what Saddam... why they really wanted Hussein out of the picture.
Well, the other thing,
and who knows if he's really dead too.
Exactly.
It's like how many invitations?
Well, he had 12 doubles.
Yeah. How many?
In fact, on CNN the day or two before, the invasion, there was one of his doubles out glad handing the crowd, and the footage was on CNN, and they were supposed to believe the guy is dead. He's living. A guy with $50 billion is living in a hole. Is living in a hole. The Army finds him in a hole, right? I mean, if you have $50 billion, you're telling me there's some general somewhere that you can get to fly him out, him to fly you out?
The real Saddam Hussein is retired.
Probably in Uganda somewhere.
He and Osama are hanging out playing chess right now.
Or Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Osama could easily be the same.
But Bin Laden was on a kidney dialysis machine.
Yeah.
And the CIA met with him 2 months before the 9/11 at the American hospital in Dubai.
Yeah. Well, what did the power structure gain from him?
He's not going to drag a kidney dialysis machine around in caves with him.
In Bora Bora.
He's been dead a long time.
He's been dead a long time, or has he been retired a long time?
They use actors. The pictures don't even match.
Yeah.
If you go back over the years, you see the different personalities they've used.
Yeah.
And what's her name? The FBI translator, Sybil Edmonds, who came up with all kinds of revelations from transcribing these tapes, said there were a number of Bin Ladens from the transcripts that she worked in. There were a number of them, and you can see. I've sent these pictures out to people. You look at Bin Laden, the actors aren't even good. In fact, in that first Bin Laden videotape in November 2011 that came out where he supposedly took credit for 9/11, first of all, he's wearing jewelry, which Muslims don't do. He's eating with the hand they wipe their ass with, which they don't do. He's much heavier than Bin Laden. Bin Laden had a very thin face.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of things about that video, and at the time, of course, it's put out, they say, well, this video is still being analyzed by the CIA. Well, by then it's proliferated around the world, and then 2 weeks later they say we have verified it, blah, blah, blah. Well,
but it's already out there. The job is done.
That stuff has been produced.
Yeah.
By a group of people. Wayne Madsen knows who they are that produce those things.
Yeah.
And the Israelis are all involved in that and so forth. But what I want to get back to is this point of the criminality of the elites, because there are studies that show that for elite deviants, the criminality of the elite, it's far more destructive in society than anything that happens with the people who fill our prisons. And the laws are weak or non-existent the higher you go up the food chain. And everything from, as I said, drug running to fraud in banking. If there was ever a dead giveaway about the deviance of the elites and how they have a different system of laws in this country, it was with the greatest theft in the history of humanity in 2008, with the fraud on Wall Street.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was the giveaway. I mean, and they're shameless about it now. You see, there used to be a time about 20 or 30 years ago, they would try and explain that away in the news media with some kind of thought. Or they would try and hide.
Well, that's how well they've accomplished the mission, generationally speaking.
And they're so close to complete. They're about 95% there.
Yeah, like we're among the last holdouts, I think.
They're about 95% there.
Yeah.
Well, the system is collapsing, and it's
consuming itself.
Well, and the oligarchs eat their own. You know, they eat their own. I mean, Prescott Bush, we probably talked about this before, was a Nazi banker and doing business with the Nazis right through World War II, while his own son was a U.S. Navy pilot. But somehow, talk about cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Somehow, in his mind, he's able to, imagine this, going from Greenwich on the train every day to Wall Street. All your neighbors' kids, and your own kid is in the war. And you're somehow you think it's okay to do business.
Yeah, you're making money off of them, helping them manage their money.
And you're a partner with Averell Harriman in the Silesian coal that's Auschwitz is providing slave labor to.
Yeah.
And tens of thousands of Russians and Poles are dying. It's worked to death.
Yeah.
And then he got his money after World War II, got his $1.5 million out. I mean, and then ran for the U.S. Senate. Of course, his
won, didn't he?
His opponent died mysteriously of a heart attack at 40-something years old.
Yeah. Ain't that funny?
Well, you know, every war of the 20th century has been fomented or promoted by people from Skull and Bones. Yeah. You know, the Yale, you know, which is probably part of the Illuminati, but
yeah.
But the thing about the elites is you know, like Mayor Bloomberg, the 20th richest person in the world. I don't know if we talked about that either. It's
fine because it's good to retouch it. Yeah.
Anyway, the 20th richest man in the world, he has $20 billion. There's some fantastic amount over 20. You can't even count after that. I mean, it's like so much money, right? Yeah. He invented high-frequency trading, by the way. So he's like he's a real culprit here. The other thing is about the New York City Council passed a resolution that any contractor doing work with the City of New York had to pay $11.50 an hour. Now, first of all, you can't live in New York City at $11.50 an hour, but that was the bottom line. And they passed this twice over Bloomberg's objection. Bloomberg said it should be called it communism, that it should be $10 an hour. And he's suing, the last I heard, I don't know the status of it today, he was suing the New York City Council for this, and the man has absolutely no conscience, no empathy, no compassion. You know, but this is oligarchy. It goes back thousands of years. Plato wrote about this.
I hate to. I think maybe we should make this a series. You know.
Well, do like a
weekly or bi-weekly sit down.
Well, I just want to quickly say that a change a paradigm shift is underway.
Yeah.
And we're moving from the age of mechanism, power, prediction, control, which has really gave rise to the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
The physics, it comes from the physics and the meanings we create from the physics, the worldview we create. Came from Isaac Newton, the laws of nature, thermodynamics, gravity, linear causality.
Yeah.
Okay. That system is now obsolete. We have a more refined system that includes that, but it's much bigger and much more sensitive. It's called quantum, the quantum paradigm. It's, quantum physics, born in 1905, but it's still not permeated our systems. Yet our technology, computers, lasers, all these things are based on it. In fact, everything in the universe is quantum.
Yeah.
It's just less convenient to do the math on mass objects than it is. But the mechanistic model, which alienated humanity because no matter man's passions, loves, or poetry, the inexorable machine, was unfeeling and was only quantitative measures of power, prediction, control. So the subjective experience of humanity, the qualitative dimensions of the human experience were relegated to an emotional junk heap called subjective experience by science. Because science is mass, space, and time, the three parameters. All physics is mass, space, and time. But in 1905, what we discovered now is that the human being who was conducting the experiment, the scientific method was, if the experiment was the same, it didn't matter who's conducting it, the outcome would be the same.
Yeah.
Well, now, it's called the area preparation. The person conducting the experiment is now part of the system. And
based on due to the Heisenberg principle?
Well, it's one of the models, right? The observer effect is part of the standard model. There are other models there, but anyway, and I get into them in my book, but right, the bottom line is that the area preparation now includes the observer participant, and that the intent of the observer changes the outcome of the experiment. So this puts mankind back at the very center of creating reality, literally changing physics, changing physical reality. And this, of course, opens up all of the spiritual stuff about paranormal activity, psychic phenomena, remote viewing, miracles, all these kinds of things that science, scientism. What happens with science because under Newton it was mass, space, and time, that became a religion. That anything was not mass, space, or time didn't exist. And so that's called scientism, okay? But now that what we know is that will is the fourth parameter. That will. So there's mass, space, and time, but there's will. A quantum is really a purposive action to become. So what do quanta become? They become all that is. And this paradigm shift that I'm talking about it's birthing what I call a post-scarcity reality, where everything in the universe is a free energy system. Our bodies are free energy systems. The whole universe is bursting with energy, even empty space. What is invisible is energy. So how can we live in a story called energy crisis? We're not wearing the right glasses. But we see in computers, nanotechnology, processing speed, life extension, all these things are going on now as science creates a finer and finer net and puts it down into the infinite sea of this energy the universe is and pulls it back up and has these discoveries, then mimics the discoveries and builds technology from it. Is all science. Nature's already doing these things already. As it mimics nature, we're coming now into what I call the age of infinity. If you graph over the last 30 years the rate of increase in processor speed or the cost of memory or the size of memory in computers, we're approaching a straight line up. And this is what's going to be the post-scarcity reality. We live now in the scarcity, and this fits the ego, which projects threats that don't exist, and fear of scarcity stops. The only thing in the universe that stops the flow of energy, food, everything's a form of energy. It's the only entity in the universe that stops the flow of energy and takes more than it needs. And that's what's killing life. Is this? Yet our system celebrates it.
Yeah.
That the people who are the biggest gluttons, who amass the most massive fortunes, they're the heroes. They're the people to emulate. They're the models. That's why I talk about Lloyd Blankfein being in the cover of CEO magazine. And the golden rule, Ron Paul mentions the golden rule in the debate, Republican debate, and he's laughed at by the audience. I mean, what kind of a culture have we created?
Yeah.
But
it's a system, the culture of monsters.
But the system, you know,
your new film.
I believe we're going to have elemental transmutation, probably about 30 years. We'll be able to literally transform any element to any other element. Since everything is form of energy, we'll be able to create anything.
Yeah.
And we're going to have instant learning. We're going to have life extension. They're growing organs now with stem cells. We have a whole new future ahead. But the next 30 years, this paradigm.
This is the transition period.
This is the transition period as the old paradigm is in its death knell. It will fight harder and harder. It's like the civil rights movement. The racist movement in the South, as the civil rights movement progressed, they became more and more vicious trying to fight it.
Yeah.
Trying to fight the evolution that was happening, the revolution that was happening. Now the same thing is like, if we can call the psychological entity called the world ego, let's say, all of our egos together, what it's doing now is in this race against time to privatize everything on the planet. And it's this inexorable, you know the movie Transformers, right? Well, the corporation's like a transformer. It just keeps going like this. And of course, people worry about artificial intelligence. Well, the corporation is artificial intelligence.
It's already there.
It's already there, and we've imbued it with human rights, and it has more rights. You hear Ralph Nader talk about this. It has more rights than any individual does, because it can dump pollution on your lawn and not be arrested or in jail. Anyway, so
a great phrase I've heard is if corporations are people, then they should have the death penalty. Right. That makes me endorse the death penalty.
But the thing is this: the community of people, we form governments to create better lives for ourselves, not for corporations. The thing is, those corporations are licensed by states.
Yeah.
And we can require corporations to have certain reporting requirements in terms of their performance.